Hello everyone and welcome. This is Christine with Patter Crafts, and today I have a show and share of all the cards I created using the Scrapping for Less flavor of the month for September. That theme was orchards and patches. So we're going to do a show and share of all the cards I made using the collection. Some of them you may have already seen because they may have been in my reveal blog post. They might be something you could have seen on social media, especially Instagram. I tend to post and be very active on Instagram. It's definitely my favorite of, you know, between like Pinterest, Facebook, and Instagram. Instagram's my absolute favorite. So you may have seen some of them there. But anyway, I just wanted to show everything I made using this kit. This is what I have left for scraps. And this is from all 4 collections. I think I did fairly well using up scrap pieces. This will just end up going into the recycle bin because I am never going to use these. I could save them and then they're going to just pile up and pile up and pile up, and then I'm going to feel like I need to use them. And I've decided that that's too much pressure. So when I get small scraps like this, they go into recycling. And I'll tell you what, it has made my life less stressful because I do try to focus on using what I have. So anyway, let's get started with sharing what I made. So this is the collection 1. I have the stamp set, of course, that I can add to my stash, and I did manage to use all the other elements that came with this collection. So most of my cards are very similar for this one, mostly because the stamp set, this large floral and sentiment piece, I love the size of it, but so there's not too much diversity, but they're all kind of unique on their own. So this card would have been one of the last ones I made because this side has just all kinds of scraps. So these are all just like teeny tiny little pieces that I just added over here. This is a larger scrap piece, so we went ahead and added that, and then I just used a bunch of little scraps. So what I did is I just basically put tape runner and then just stuck a bunch on and then turned it around and cut them so that it fit the card. Used this sentiment here with the stamp or with the flower image. I did not color this because I just thought it was really pretty on its own, considering there's like so much going on over here. And I just used the distress ink in the color Vintage Photo. I did use my Misty because anyone who's tried to stamp with distress ink will know you have to stamp it several times in order to get a more solid image. Distress ink really isn't meant to stamp like this, but you can use distress ink for stamping like this. You just have to stamp it kind of over and over. I don't really have a lot of colored ink pads, but I do have a fair amount of distress ink, so I do tend to use those for stamping, and I just use my Misty for that. Alright, so moving on, here is another card, very similar, but I have 2 pieces that are big enough to just use the 2. I have one of those Love from Lizzie little strip thingies here kind of going down the middle, separating the 2, and again the image, which I did color with Copic markers and added 3 of the enamel dots from the collection. This one here, clearly very similar to the rest, but I did color with the Copic markers, and look this, guys, I tied a bow. We won't talk about how long it took me to make that bow because that is scraps from what it was left over on this card. But I did make the little bow there and adhered that down with some of the multimedia matte. And again, a couple little enamel dots. I think that's all I had left when I got to this card were those 2. Sometimes I use the enamel dots. If I have some left over at the end, then I kind of go ahead and go through my cards and find out which ones I want to pop them up on. So this card here, I love, love, love this pattern paper. I didn't want to do anything with it, so we just matted that on this pattern paper. I wrapped around some ribbon and just tied a knot on this one and added 3 enamel dots. This card is so pretty. I love this image. This is from the pattern paper. So what I ended up doing is using a circle die to cut that out. And then this paper here was a scrap, so I just decided the circle fit perfectly on top of there, so we went ahead and did that. These two pieces here are divided by another one of those Love from Lizzie strips. Added the sentiment and the little honey pot. So the little honey pot here is from the stamp set, and I just went ahead and fussy cut that out. And this card, I do believe I made this one for the reveal. You'd think I would remember all of the cards I made for certain things, but I'm just having a rough few weeks, and I'm just feel like I've got a lot of things going on, and I'm sorry. So it just matted some of the pattern paper, stamped that out, and used 3 of the enamel dots here, and added Wink of Stella, or the Spectrum Noir glitter brush is probably what I used. So pretty. I don't know if the camera is picking up any of that shine, but it is so pretty. So these are all the cards I made using collection number 1. So let's take a peek at collection number 2. Collection number 2 had this really cute scarecrow. He's pretty much all I have left from collection 2. I used all the other elements. So we'll go ahead and we'll be able to add that to our stash. These two pieces, or these 2 cards anyway, this pattern paper was kind of like one piece of pattern paper. And so this side was probably on this side though, and this side was probably on this side. But anyway, I cut this piece into 3s. So on this side for this really pretty paper, I just used a scalloped border die to trim this out, and I did the same on the other side. And then there was like this piece in the middle, so I trimmed that out, and that is where this piece went along with this paper. And then I had this paper, and this went fine with this, so super pretty. And then I just added a couple of enamel dots over here just to kind of fill in that space a little bit. I didn't really have any more to add down here, so we're just kind of leaving it like that. I did not add anything from the stamp set, the sentiment, or the images, because I just didn't feel like they went with my design for what I did here. So, but I love these flowers, so pretty. So then we have this card here. This, I just trimmed down a piece of the patchwork pattern paper, added a little scarecrow to the middle along with the sentiment from the stamp set that says "Hey there," and I added 2 enamel dots on each side to kind of fill in the white space. I did use some of the vintage photo distressing to just kind of add a little bit of color to the edges. You can't really see it very well, but it is there. You can kind of see it in person. I don't know if you'll be able to see that on camera. This card is a card of scraps, but because of the patchwork kind of pattern paper that goes with it, you may or may not know that. So this is a big piece of scrap paper here, and then this is a small scrap, this is a scrap, and this is a scraps. And then I used a tag where I used 2 more scraps. Use the sentiment "Hey there." On this tag, I did use that vintage photo distress ink again because I did not want this upper piece to be white. Popped up our little scarecrow on some foam tape, used the rest of the ribbon, and I added 3 of the enamel dots. This card was fun because it's so different from what I would normally do. And I mean, I guess I shouldn't say so different, but I would never, this is the first time I've ever added buttons like this to a card. So this piece was a scrap. So what I ended up doing, and because it was just so pretty on its own, and there was really no way to use, with what I had left when I made this card, there was really no way to kind of use it as a normal size card. When I say normal, I usually make 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 cards, so that's what I mean by that. But I just trimmed down a card base to fit this piece of pattern paper. So my scarecrows popped up on 2 pieces of foam tape so that I could add these buttons underneath. I did adhere those with the multi-matte medium. So you can see some of the glue on this side, like through the little buttonholes, but the other ones you can't tell. Added the sentiment "Hey there" and 3 of the enamel dots right here, and I love the way this came out. Definitely not a card I'll mail because of the buttons. I don't think that would mail very well without like putting it in a padded envelope, and that just seems like a lot of money for a card when I could just hand it to someone local. This card was a card I made for the reveal. I love the pattern paper. It's so pretty, and I wanted the pattern paper to show, so that's why I didn't really use the stamp set. But I did use the stencil that came with the banana split part of the pack to kind of add some detail to the card base. Wrapped some ribbon around, added it onto the card with a button. And then of course this was my reveal card. So I showed it on the reveal. I also showed it quickly with the 4 cards, 1 kit, but I think there's an issue with that video, so I have temporarily put that video to private until I have time to kind of review. Somebody said there was something wrong with the transition, so once I do a voiceover, I don't tend to watch the videos again, so I need to check on that. But anyway, that is everything from collection 2. Moving on to collection 3 that has this super cute gnome. I used everything from collection 3, but I know there was some little, like a strip of brown twine. I'm not sure if it came with this collection or the other collection. I can't find my ingredients sheet. I cleaned my craft room and there's a pile of paper sitting in a corner, and I skimmed it quickly, didn't see it, and anyway, I'm just trying to go off memory here. But anyway, that little piece of brown twine is MIA as well, which kind of prompted me over the last 2 days to really clean up my craft room, because I have a tendency just to like, everything explodes in here, but this also seems to be the catch-all room. So like if we have people coming over, or if I don't know where to put something, this is where crap tends to end up until I have a chance to actually put it away. So I have spent the last 2 nights cleaning my craft room. It's really good today, so I'm excited to get this done and then do some more creating. Anyway, probably TMI, but let's take a look and see what I made with this collection. So this is definitely this was the last card I made, because all of these pieces are scraps. I just kind of like threw them on. These 2 I did matte with some coordinating cardstock. This is a cut apart from the pattern paper, and I added 3 of the enamel dots here. Now the enamel dots, at least for this collection, I feel like after I finished making all the cards, then I went and added them because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with them while I was making these cards. But anyway, this is this card. This is a card that I made the like base, so like I had this, you know, leaf piece and this leaf piece, and then I basically set it aside for a week, at least a week, because I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. Then I decided I was going to put the little gnome on this fun pattern paper here. And because the enamel dots were orange, that's why the little band here is orange, so that I could tie in those enamel dots. I wasn't sure if the sentiments, like what I wanted to do with them. I kind of like played around, and I just felt like I was forcing stuff onto the card. So anyway, this card was way longer to get a concept together and that I was happy with. And at the end, I am happy with it. It's cute. I know that didn't sound very convincing. Moving on. This card I absolutely love. This is a great card because I love this sentiment. I wanted that to be the showcase, so I just used 2 pieces of pattern paper with one of those Love from Lizzie strips down the middle, and it says, "Don't be afraid to go out on a limb, that's where the fruit is." So really fun card. This one is one of my absolute favorites. I love the sentiment, apple skies and pumpkin pies. So I went ahead, stamped that out, colored it, trimmed it with a circle die cut, used a mini scallop die to trim some coordinating cardstock for a mat. And this is one piece of paper, and then I used this little strip here and trim the ends. And these ends end up on this card, which is so fun. So I have this little polka dot pattern paper, added those scraps from this card, one of the cut aparts for the sentiment, and then added our little gnome over here. This just says life needs more hay rides and apple picking. And if you love fall, you probably agree with that, because I know I do, and I love fall. And then this card here is part of the reveal. This was a slimline card sketch from the Card Sketches Each Month Scrapping for Less. Adds 4 card sketches. You can download those on the download tabs if you just want a little inspiration on, you know, using, I use it mostly when I'm using pattern paper, because card sketches with pattern paper, it gives you a great way to start. Sometimes I follow it exactly and sometimes I don't. But anyway, this was one of those. So cute. And there's just white paper in the middle. And so that was everything for this collection. And then the last collection here, I have the stamp set left. I do have some things left over from this kit, and I'll show you those in just a moment, but this is the stamp set. This was my sneak peek card. So I just basically showcased the pattern paper and the ephemera, and I added 3 of the enamel dots. On the inside, I stamped the sentiment and colored that in with some colored pencils. This is a fun little shaker card. What I ended up doing is using the pattern paper underneath, so I wanted to make sure I lined one of the trucks up kind of in the middle of this window. Added some sequins that came with the collection, and the sentiment here, Hello Pumpkin, that is from the ephemera we get in the kit. This one here, the pattern paper is so pretty. And this is one of the ephemera pieces. It says Pumpkin Kisses and Harvest Wishes. So I trimmed this piece down with a large rectangle die. This piece here, I used that same die so I'd get the matching stitching here. And then for this piece and the small green piece underneath, I used like a clouds die to just kind of make that fun. And that is it for that card. This card's pretty much scrap pieces of pattern paper. This was the scrap that I decided to make a focal point. I love these trucks. So I just matted that on some coordinating brown cardstock, and then used the ephemera up here that said Sweater Weather. And it's kind of a busy card, but it's fun. I just love these trucks. And this one's kind of plain. I don't really know what I wanted to do with it. This is a scrap. This is a scrap. I just used a piece of orange cardstock from my stash to separate the two. Used the Sweet Fall ephemera piece, and the rest of the enamel dots I added here. I feel like I need something over here, but at the same time I probably don't need anything over there, so we're gonna leave it because I can always add to it, but you really can't take stuff off. So we're gonna just let it hang out and see what I end up doing with it later. So in all, 2, 4, I made 5 cards with this collection. I made 6 cards with this collection, and 7 cards for collection number 2, and 6 cards with collection number 1. So tons and tons of cards in this collection here, or the card kit. So I showed you what I have left over for scraps. I have all the stamp sets to add to my stash. At the banana split portion, you get this fun little ruler. It's very flexible. It's got like a little hole here so you could put it in a binder, or if you have like something to take away, or you know, like when you're crafting away. Anyway, it's just nice that you have that so you could just kind of like hang it somewhere. I like that it's nice and flexible. It's a type of plastic you'd be able to clean up. We have the stencil, which I have not cleaned. So we have the stencil, and then some of the things I have left over. So I have sequins left over from that last kit, and I also have some of these frames and ephemera pieces, because you get a nice amount of frames and ephemera pieces. So I do have those, and then all that I have left in here are, before I started making cards, I stamped out the images and used my scan and cut to cut them out. So I have those left over to just kind of add to my box where I have images ready to go. So anyway, thank you so very much for watching this video. I hope you get some inspiration, whether it be with this card kit or a different card kit. Go ahead and use those ups. Don't be afraid of scraps, but also don't be afraid to toss the scraps though if they're too tiny. I know for some people they can't do that, and that's okay. If you use them, great. I personally find them very stressful. Anyway, thank you so very much for joining me. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. But until next time, bye.